Hey, welcome back to Coding Cabin, and in this video we will be learning variables, one of the most fundamental aspects of coding, and a continuation on input-output from the previous video. So you may be asking yourself, what is a variable? Basically, a variable is something that we can store data in and we can change it whenever we want. So that all sounds a bit confusing, but let's look at an example. So as we learned in the previous video, if I want to output something to the terminal here on the right, I can simply type in print and then whatever I want to output. So in this example, I'm just going to put 11 for example. So right now, what should happen is when I hit run, I should see 11 in the console. So this is basically doing exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to print the number 11, and that is exactly what happens on the console side, or the terminal. Now, let's use some variables in here. So, one of Python's most useful features, if you're coming from a different language, is that you do not need to declare variables. Now, if that was a little confusing for any of you, we will explain it in more in depth as the Intro to Python curriculum continues, and you'll learn more about different data types and why they are important and how Python handles them. So in Python, if I want to create a variable, I can just name it. In this case, since we're going to be printing out 11 or a number, I'll name it number, and I will assign it or set it equal to the value of 11. So that's easy enough. Now I know that this number or this name or this variable name number is now assigned to the value 11. Now I can print 11 and it should give me the same 11, or I can print number. Now let's see what happens. So as you can see, I have 11 on this one, 11 and 11. Nice, so they output the same thing. Now if I were to change this here to 13, it should print out 11 and 13 because this 11 is just an 11, but number is not 11 anymore. Instead, it's 13. So let's run it. Wow, 11 and 13. So that's an example with numbers. So let's look at variables in a different way. I can type my name as Seth, and make sure whenever you use a string, you're using either double quotes or single quotes inside of your word. We'll continue that later, but if you want to test this out, you have to put a word like this. So my name is Seth. I can print name, and this should print my name. Nice. Now, this is basically essentially what a variable is, and they're extremely useful since I can store data in these variables and access them really easily. So just to give an example where this would be useful is if we went back to the number example. If the number was something huge, it'd be a huge hassle for me to print that number again if I had to go 1 2 4 0 9 1 2 3. You get the idea. I'm not going to type it. But if I just wanted to access that number, I only had to basically type it in once, and I could just refer to this number anytime later. So I can do print number, run. Nice, so we get both of that. So in learning variables so far, we've actually been continuing on that concept that we learned in last video, which was input-output. As we learned in the last video, to do your first print function, which was just hello world, it's really important to realize that these are operations that we're giving to the computer. So the print, for example, right? We are inputting a number. So I'm just going to put this number back down to 11, and I'm going to delete this. So in this example, we are inputting an 11 for a number, and we're outputting. Using the print function, we are outputting that number to the console. As you can see, if we run this, we will have 11. So that's basically the crux of what a variable is and how a variable functions and what a continuation on input-output is. However, there are a few important rules that we need to follow. So first, as I mentioned previously, is that I can change a variable whenever I want. So if I were to go here and then rename the variable number to say 14, and I were to print number, this should print 11, and 14, because number here is being changed. That was one of the first things I said in the video. It's something that can easily be changed. We could change it at any time. So right here I'm changing number to 14. Now number is equal to 14 here, but number here was equal to 11. So that's extremely important to realize, because when a computer interprets something, it goes line by line. So the computer will look at the first line, number equals 11, then it'll look at the second line, nothing there. Third line, print the number. It remembers that the number is 11, and then it goes down. The next line it sees is number equals 14. It will print that number, which is now 14 rather than 11. So that's something really important to remember. Now, there's something really important with rules or naming conventions when it comes to variables, because as you can see, I had the freedom to pick it whatever I want. I can rechange this to just num, and then I can put num in here, and this will work perfectly fine. However, there are certain rules that you have to follow. So, for example, these rules are that variables can only contain letters, numbers, and underscores. It can start with an underscore, but it cannot start with a variable. So I can name my variable num, but I can not name my variable 1num. You see, this doesn't have any coloring on it. This one has a 1 in front of it, which turns purple, so that will just be a quick indicator for you to know that this does not look correct. So that is one of the rules. I can not have spaces inside of my variables. So if I wanted to do my number, I cannot do my number equals 5. That's not how it works. If you have multi-word variable names such as my number, you're going to want to use an underscore. And then you do that. So now my number, this is valid. My underscore number equals 5. That gives me my, and that gives me number. And it's in one thing, no spaces. Variable names should be descriptive without being extremely long. And this is extremely important, because if you have to read someone else's code and there's like my name is whatever is equal to this variable, I don't gain anything out of this. This is extremely long, and basically it's useless for this being this long. Instead, I can just set it name equal to. It does basically the same job. Another extremely important aspect is that variable names, they are case sensitive. So if I go name equals Seth, and then I go here and I do name equals John, name equals Tyler, and I print name, this should print Tyler. So as you can see, they're case sensitive, and however sensitive, they're character sensitive. These are 3 totally different variables, and that is really important to understand in really grasping variables. If you're still a little confused, don't worry, because the problem sets that we have for this lesson are really thorough, and you will be for sure get a good grasp on variables to continue on forward with the lessons. And even if you don't understand it fully on those, which I highly doubt, but even if you don't, you can we will continue using these variables throughout our future videos and throughout the next few videos in the Intro to Python curriculum, and even if you move on to the Intermediate Python curriculum, where we will be using variables all the time. So you'll have an extremely good grasp on what a variable is, what they do, and how to use them to better work your code. So thanks for tuning in. See ya.